Welcome to TVF 2025. We're excited to have everybody here today. First and foremost, need to say a thank you to everybody here who that is attending. Obviously, this event is not possible without any of you. Your interest in this field is really what makes this event possible. And we're more than excited to be here supporting this event. Again, I am here on behalf of the Arizona chapter of Vertical Flight Society, supporting this event every couple of years. Our chapter has been sponsoring the autonomous side of this event for about 20 years now. It's been something spectacular, and we've been fortunate enough to collaborate with headquarters on this now to bring you this joint electric and autonomous VTOL conference, and luckily enough, been doing that for almost 10 years now as well. A lot of thank yous are going to go out here in the opening of this presentation. So first and foremost there, I want to give a special thank you to everybody at the headquarters of Vertical Flight Society. So specifically, Angelo Collins, our executive director, Mike Hirschberg, director of strategy, as well as Julie Gibbs, the director of technical programs. So if you guys wouldn't mind, please give them a round of applause. They have certainly poured a number of hours into supporting us through the preparation of all of this. And so in particular, I'd like to give special recognition to two individuals that have really helped set up everything that you are going to see over the next couple of days. Those two individuals are both officers of the Vertical Flight Society chapter of Arizona. First and foremost is Ariel Louie. She is our co-technical director, and she is also our awards chairwoman. She will be joining us a little bit later today, and she will be session chairing as well over the autonomous sessions. And then we also have Brett Sjostrom, who is our co-technical director as well. Brett unfortunately won't be joining us for any of the conference this week. He is a new dad, and so we are very happy for him. Everybody's healthy and happy. Wish he could be here, but happy in a way that he is not. Next, I want to thank all of our volunteers and session chairs that will be showing up for this event on behalf of the chapter. We've got Gary Klein from Boeing, who's a VFS member, who will be session chairing. Professor Wenlong Zhang from ASU, who's a VFS member and also session chairing. Dr. Kendra Beffert, who is a VFS member from Boeing and a session chair. And then a few volunteers, my vice president of VFS Arizona, Chris Slifer, Beth Stairs, who is a VFS Arizona member at Boeing as well, and Scott Swinzik, who is now retired but continues to be an active member of Vertical Flight Society. My last recognition is really going to go out to my entire team, the chapter of VFS Arizona. You guys might recognize a number of faces. You might see some old faces too. Here they are. I will kind of quickly go through them. Again, my vice president will be here today. He's outside. Our secretary, Tanya Reiner, and former president of Vertical Flight Society Arizona. Our treasurer, Mike Burgess, program director, Tim Wheeler, STEM director, Aaron Kreuter, membership director, Elizabeth Campbell, communications director, Charles Powell, and again, our technical director and awards chair, Ariel Louie. They're supported by a number of deputies. A few of them will be in attendance as well. We have our STEM deputy, Grace Crisilla, our STEM deputy, Hugo Lascano, program deputy, Carl Runco, and Program and STEM Deputy Jan Vintilescu. And our final remaining directors that won't be joining us for this conference, unfortunately, are again Brett Sjostrom, our Technical Director, and our Comms Deputy, Chris Wesdanko. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about what the chapter does in Arizona. I won't spend too much time. If you guys have questions, please feel free to come ask myself, email us, contact us, or ask one of my other officers. Out here in Arizona, we try to do a mix of virtual and in-person presentations. We rely heavily on the virtual presentations as they give us a wider access to those from industry and the ability to schedule in a very short amount of time. While our in-person dinner meetings are typically at a venue planned several weeks out in advance. And both of these events in particular are focused on technical presentations, somebody from industry with a technical background. We invite friends and family out there, but these are certainly technically driven presentations. A couple of highlights from this last year, our in-person dinner meeting was Joshua Robbins. He previously was the Western Regional Licton Award winner, only for the region, on his presentation for the development of a lightweight crash-tolerant fuel bladder, and we held that event at Scottsdale Topgolf, which for those of you who might be sticking around, I highly recommend getting out there and playing if you've never tried it. It's a great venue and a fun time. For one of our virtual events, we held Dr. Eric Greenwood. He presented on enabling ultra-quiet vertical lift aircraft operations to a joint panel of VFS, AZ, and Philadelphia chapter members. And that's one of the other aspects that we really enjoy about our virtual presentations, is that we get a chance to invite a number of our sister chapters that we otherwise don't have a whole lot of communication with, to allow a little bit more collaboration, as well as bringing in more opportunity for folks from industry to come and present to our multiple chapters. Way back. We do have a high presence in STEM as well around the valley. Sometimes we do travel outside the valley down to Tucson, Arizona. There's almost too many events to name that we've actually gone out and supported. So our focus really is to teach the younger generation the basics of vehicle control and vertical lift applications through our own portable flight simulator. We run DCS, Digital Combat Simulator, where we actually have purchased the package for the Apache helicopter, which is manufactured obviously over here in Mesa, Arizona. It gives kids a real fun experience for learning really what makes a vertical lift device or aircraft tick, for lack of a better term. There's a lot to go on there. These kids probably don't have a whole lot of experience flying helicopters, at least we would hope not. And so this is a great way to introduce it to them, as well as teach them a little bit about the physics of how these aircraft can work. A few pictures there. You can see we do actually have a kid down there who was flying this. I believe he was about 6 years old. If you can believe it or not, we have had about 3-year-olds hopping into these chairs. No, they do not operate the pedals. No, they do not operate the collective. But we do give them control of the cyclic, and I'm surprised by how well this younger generation can already fly a helicopter, even though it's on a monitor with just the cyclic. It's a little scary, in my opinion. One last highlight that'll also go into a little bit more information at the end of the day by our co-technical director, Ariel Louie. VFS does offer scholarships, and specific to the Arizona chapter, we offer one to our upperclassmen in our graduate classes and undergraduates pursuing careers in engineering and professional aviation. Our 2024 recipients, we actually ended up having 3 of them. We try to highlight 1, maybe 2, but we had 3 outstanding candidates last year. And from left to right, we have Cody Vanden Bosch, who is from the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Hyugbin Yoon, who is also from Embry-Riddle Prescott, and Christopher Sorensen, also from Embry-Riddle. And so I'll try to wrap up here. If you would like to reach out to us, feel free anytime for whatever the reason may be. Have a question, please, we'd love to answer it. If you have an opportunity for scholarship, we're open ears. Let us know. You can see we have a couple of different contacts up here. You can reach out to myself or any number of my officers. And if you are curious about local events, we do try to update our website as often as possible that we do have events. Our website, posted up there on the top right, is www.vfsaz.org. And with that, I will turn it over to Angelo Collins. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Morning, everyone. Angelo Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Vertical Flight Society. It's been about 1.5 years now. Before that, I primarily worked at DARPA, as well as the Office of Naval Research. I'm an aerospace engineer by trade. I'm a Maryland grad. I see Dr. Chopra here. I also got my master's at Virginia Tech. It's great to be in Phoenix. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. And if you don't know me, please pull me aside during the 3 days. I'd love to talk to you about what you do. And maybe if you don't know a lot about Vertical Flight Society, I'd love to get you caught up on that. So my slides are going to cover just a general update from headquarters, what we're up to, upcoming events. But again, thank you all for attending TVF. Thank you to our sponsors, our exhibitors, especially David Shilladay and the Honeywell team for being our host and our diamond sponsor. So let's jump into it. First slide, all right, maybe it's the green button, right? There we go. I want to highlight our chapters, and Colton gave a great update from the Arizona chapter. We have chapters all over the world. I was just in Australia a couple months ago. We have a chapter in Australia, chapter in South Korea, Japan. I'll be in London at the end of this month. We have a UK chapter. They're doing their annual event in the downtown. Some highlights from recent chapter events. You can see Colton hitting maybe a 300-yard drive there at Topgolf, and a few other, the sim photos that they were working on in the Arizona chapter. A lot of support. There's Paul Lemo, who was the president of Sikorsky. He would always make sure to attend a chapter event and speak to the members. And so we thank them for their countless hours that they volunteer their time to ensure that we're advancing vertical flight across the world. So thanks to the chapters there. In addition to the chapters, we also have our student chapters, and just this September, we kicked off the Student Council, which is a collective of students from all over the world that are doing some great things already. Here's the current composition of the Student Council. We have officers and directors. An example of one of the things that they're working on right now is a student-led symposium, where they've already pulled in Piasecki, Whisk, and Archer, and they're going to provide a presentation to our student members, over 600 active strong, and they're going to be able to talk to them about maybe a day in the life of an engineer working there. They made the request. They had a specific list of different people they wanted to talk to and what they wanted to learn about and talk about with these companies. So we look forward to kicking that off. They have a lot of other fun things that they're going to be working on. But again, students from all over the world, including Australia, South Korea, Canada. And so we're really excited about this program, and we hope to continue that in the future. Let's see, next chart. Just want to plug our Design Build Vertical Flight competition. The sponsorships are still available. That is 5 years strong now. We had originally had 19 teams sign up, 19 different universities. They design and build a VTOL aircraft. The mission this year for the competition is flying around in a fire situation. And they do that at Service Engineering at Maryland. And it's been a great competition. We have others, but this one has been a growing competition that we're really excited and proud about. Students really excited about being able to build an actual aircraft and fly outdoors. And so we hope that you can support, because the STEM opportunities don't make money. So we look for sponsorships. So thank you very much. Next slide. Let's see. Here's a look at the board of directors. So we at least have a few here today or this week. As I said, Dave Shilliday is now our secretary treasurer, and that's a position that rotates on the executive committee. So in 2 years' time, he will be the chair. He will be the boss of the Vertical Flight Society. And if timing didn't work out great, we'll be here in Phoenix for Forum 83, and that's when Dave Shilliday will be the chair of the Vertical Flight Society. So that'll be a great one. We're looking forward to that. We'll be here, but we'll be taking up a lot more space. We usually get around 1,300 people. So that's Forum 83 coming up soon. But the next forum is in May, Forum 81. We number our forums, if you weren't aware. We're up to 81 now. I like that tradition. I think we could potentially do that with TVF. Okay? We kind of go with the calendar year, but maybe we start numbering TVF since we're up to, 12? Mike will correct me. But we'll hopefully, we have a lot of great opportunities and extra events at the forum this year. We plan to have a tour at NASA Langley. While we're there, we're going to bring in a bunch of local students, at least 100 local students. The Hampton Roads chapter is working on that now. Some of the schools that we'll be bringing local, we'll have, I think, around a couple hundred engineering students at the forum this year. Really excited about that. We'll have the exhibit floor and some other fun updates I'll provide. We have our keynotes locked in. We have Brigadier General Walsh from NavAir, PEOA, and Major General Rob Berry from ASALT will be sharing a keynote moderated by Harry Nahadas, who's the current chair of the board. And they'll have a nice kind of fireside chat conversation on the stage about the future of vertical lift. And so we're looking forward to that dialogue as part of the keynote. And then, of course, our CEO panel. The topic this year is rapid response, vertical advantage, VTOL in life-saving missions. And we could talk about the civil and defense sector there. We have an addition this year, the new CEO of Robinson, David Smith, said he has to be on the stage, and he's really excited about the forum, and so we're going to add Robinson. Usually it's the 5, but we'll have Robinson on the stage as well, and they're all confirming now, so we're looking forward to that. at the forum. One new program we have on the Monday night is a silent auction and a dinner and a roast of the vertical flight community. And so please join us for that. All the proceeds will go to the Vertical Flight Foundation, our scholarship fund. We're up to $120,000 a year now in scholarships we're able to give to those students. And opportunities like this will hopefully increase that amount. It'll be at the Military Aviation Museum in Virginia Beach. It's about a 30-minute drive from the convention center. But if you're planning to attend the forum, please join us at the silent auction and bring your jokes. If you're interested in roasting anyone in particular, we can have some funny awards or whatnot. Please let me know. We already have a few people lined up. Maybe Dan Newman will get on there, up on the stage. We'll see. So I did want to, and oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. Potential spam, apologize. So I did want to hit on the accident and maybe and speaking from at least my personal experiences in my career. My kids are getting older, so they're starting to get into Star Wars, right? And episode 4, they don't understand why it starts in episode 4, and they don't understand the Roman numerals. But at the end of episode 4, Luke turns off his targeting system, right? And he uses the Force to blow up the Death Star, right? People are fallible. We're humans. We make mistakes. Things happen. It's great to have the ability to be augmented by all the wonderful work we've been doing in this sector, what I've personally been working on over the last decade or longer, whether it have been the ACUS program, where we were using the unmanned little bird, the Boeing unmanned little bird, landing with an autonomous system and unprepared LZs, using active sensing, supplementing and augmenting the pilot, or whether it's the current Alias program that's been going on now. I helped write the BAA in 2014, and it's still an active program at DARPA. Augmenting and helping a pilot in degraded visual environment, it's something that no amount of training, regardless of how exceptional the pilot is, flying at night, flying in an environment that has a lot of light pollution, and being having night vision goggles potentially, no amount of training can make a human more human. There's no such thing as the Force. And, I just want to foot stomp all the great work we're doing, and we hope that the Army will continue to fund Alias and projects like this and start to integrate them into aircraft, into Black Hawks in particular. We've already flown the Black Hawk with the Alias system unmanned, right? And so we hope to see more investment in that space. Missy Cummings and I, and that's part of it, wrote a paper. This was over 10 years ago now. We understood the problem then. We still understand the problem today. And so, I just hope that we continue to invest in R&D as a part of our mission as the Vertical Flight Society to foot stomp all this exceptional work that we're doing, and hope that we can continue to get acquisition funding to integrate this technology into the fleet. So I'll leave with this slide, and I'll introduce Dave Shilliday. So we have some exciting updates in 2025, and I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek now, but we'll be at Verticon in March, and I think we'll be able to announce some of these. But new website update we're working on with the new library. It's going to be more functional and searchable. It won't be a story you have to check out an individual paper anymore. We're working on a new eVTOL news and our affiliate programs there. We're working on packaging that in a different way. We are working on a new corporate membership structure. We have a corporate membership model now. It's a little old, and we're going to renew that. So that's something to look out for in 25. We do have some updates in partnerships with both SAE and AIAA with respect to our journal and our library. So look out for that as well. And then we will be announcing the location of Forum 84. And we're working right now with the city, and we're pretty close to negotiating a deal. So we'll be able to announce that soon. So, all right. So with that, I think that's my last chart. So I have the honor, as I said before, to introduce Dave Shilliday, who's the VP and GM of UAM and UAS at Honeywell. He is currently the Secretary-Treasurer of the Board of Directors of the Vertical Flight Society. Among other roles in his current position as Vice President and General Manager of Uncrewed Aerial Systems and Urban Air Mobility, he oversees development of new products and functions as a system integrator and airframe manufacturers and operators in the rapidly evolving UAS market. I know it's probably a challenge to keep up, but he's doing a great job. His scope and responsibilities encompass various aspects of aircraft systems, including avionics, electric and hybrid electric propulsion, and thermal management. Additionally, he is involved in flight services such as uncrewed air traffic management and ground operation services such as predictive maintenance and analytics. Prior to joining Honeywell, David had a role in engineering and IP strategy within the commercial automotive market. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Arizona and a Master's of Business Administration and MBA from W.P. Carey School at Arizona State University. And he's a holder of several patents related to innovative automotive safety. Come up. Thank you for having us and hosting us in Phoenix. Thank you, sir.
Hey, good morning, everybody. And I know coffee is still pending, so I'm going to try and keep the energy level high. Such a pleasure to welcome you to this event. VFS is such an esteemed group. What an amazing history over 80 years, names like Sikorsky and Piasecki that are not just historical landmarks, but continue to innovate. For folks who are not from the Phoenix area or who don't visit very often, if you're wondering, is Phoenix always like this? The answer is yes. It never gets any warmer. I would move your families and your businesses here immediately. Hey, here in 2025, though, I do want to say there's a renaissance, and I don't think that states it too strongly, in the design, application, and research of vertical flight. The number of new designs, new OEMs, and innovations at the aircraft and system level are staggering. It's an amazing time to be alive, but it's a more amazing time to be in this industry. For an early career engineer or midterm or late term, I'm looking at you, Mr. Newman, the opportunities presented to you are a step change for maybe any time since the Second World War. And we need more design and manufacturing and simulation talent than perhaps in the history of humankind. And to achieve this, we need an ecosystem of schools, industrial players, and government partners, such as our wonderful Mayor Gallego, to ensure we're putting together the talent and the infrastructure and the regulatory environment that allows us to flourish. The good news is we have passionate and vocal advocates to help us do that, and a lot of them are here in this room. The maybe not so good news is there's a lot of competition. Maybe second only to AI, there's a global race to build a low altitude economy that leverages vertical flight and all of the innovations that come along with it. Anybody have a news feed that tracks stories on VTOL, STOL? Yeah. You go 4 hours without news, without a new player, without a new mission, without some milestone. It's a staggering time to try to keep up. There were 32 eVTOL OEMs at the Zhuhai Air Show in December. 32. Just Chinese eVTOL OEMs, some of them with relatively sophisticated and mature vehicles. We can convince ourselves that not all of those designs are going to win the day. But if we look at the automotive industry, we should remain vigilant on how rapidly we can lose the recipe. So, what can we do? What can we do to make sure that we recognize the benefits and we're the innovators in this space? Suggestion one, don't stick your head in the sand. It would be easy to sleep at night if you convince yourself that these other vehicles in other development and other geographies will never get certified. It's not designed to 10 to the minus ninth. The FAA will never allow it. They'll never import those vehicles here. So maybe that's true. And perhaps that means they could only use them in the world's second largest economy, in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia and maybe India. They might accept that consolation prize and move right on. And then what? We fly to Dubai and we're wowed by the Wakanda-like step change in technology? We convince ourselves it must not be any good or we'd have it in Midtown Manhattan? So try it, gather the data. There's no substitute for trying, adapting, improving. I was thrilled to see Amazon doing drone delivery in the West Valley here in Arizona, and I'm okay that they had to stop it to fix some things. We should view that as progress. We shouldn't give them a scarlet letter for identifying some roadblocks and moving past them. Waymo gathered millions of hours of driving data here in Phoenix that allows them to improve that algorithm, that allows them to improve those operations, to get better. Do we really think there's any substitute for what EHang is learning in Shenzhen, in Bangkok, next in Shanghai? Suggestion number 2, stop talking about what we can't do and start talking about what we can do and what we can do faster. I get it, it's hard. Stop telling us why the current rules don't work. Stop telling us why the current government is dysfunctional or why we'll never get the support we need. What's the burning platform that gets energy behind this? What are the work streams we can take on rapidly without waiting for some sea change in regulation? Do we really need some exogenous event to push us forward, or can we all agree the current pace isn't going to work for us? Suggestion number 3, find passionate supporters, industry, academia, government, and make them a force multiplier. Whatever the motivating story is for them, tell it. Opening regional economies, reducing dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs performed by a distressed labor pool, improving national security. The technology is here to improve the quality of life for that shrinking labor pool, not to replace them. Educate those supporters on how we can use the current technology wave to solve our biggest problems and why being not just first, but first with an enduring solution matters. We have new leaders in DOT, FAA, DOD. How do we get that churn to drive energy and momentum rather than paralysis? There will always be competing priorities. There will always be an Aquilian battlecruiser or a Carillion death ray. We're going to have to address multiple challenges at once. We don't have the luxury of saying innovation will have to wait till we get past the current crisis. We don't get to operate in series. We also need to recognize that regulation is going to evolve. And we can't make the regulatory cycle so painful that we only take it on some X number of years. We're going to have to be agile. We've just witnessed a year where more Americans traveled than at any year in history. By air than at any point in history, breaking the record we set in 2023. The demand for air travel isn't waning, nor is the demand for unprecedented levels of safety. We can and must do both at an attractive price point. And I remain an optimist about our ability to innovate. If we look for reasons why it can't be done here, we will find them. This isn't a group that accepts the status quo, however, and they'll kick and scream and claw to a better outcome. So to the engineers here in the room, get to work. It's a great time to be alive. To the regulators and lawmakers here in the room, get to work. To our friends in the DOD, any DOD representatives, write some checks, please. And to our industry partners, build some parts, get them into test. Not next week, not tomorrow, now. Get them out and let's learn some stuff. Thank you for all your support and your tireless efforts, and the reward for your hard work will be lots more hard work. Before I take any questions, I did want to put up, for anybody who hasn't signed up, we are having a tour of our flight line just down the street here at our engines campus. It's an opportunity to see all of our test aircraft that we use to develop a lot of these systems, and we'll have on hand some of the very specific technologies we're developing for advanced air mobility for the eVTOL space. So please come by. We'd love to have you. We'd love to discuss more about what we're developing and why we think it enables the future. And with that, Angelo, I don't know if there's, you wanted to do a little Q&A before we introduce the mayor?
I can hear myself. If there's mics at the podiums, I can also hand a mic if you have any questions for Mr. Shilladay. But maybe I'll kick it off. So, sir, when you threw out the first pitch at the Diamondbacks game, I heard they clocked you at around 85. Is that true?
That is true. I think the only person who threw faster than me was Smokey the Bear, Baxter, the Diamondbacks. Yeah. I did have the privilege, because of some of our STEM efforts, to throw out a first pitch at the Diamondbacks game. I was going to have a long professional career in sports, but I had a lack of God-given talent. But it was a great opportunity that was given to me as a result of the STEM work we do with VFS and others.
Yeah.
And as a product of Arizona schools, as someone who learned to be an engineer here in Arizona schools, it's something I'm very passionate about, how we create that and how we drive the engineers that we're going to need for this and future industries. More than you asked for, Angelo.
We got a few minutes, so if you guys have questions, please do. Will, you want to ask a question? You got anything?
Yes, I have some question. As you mentioned very strongly the challenges around the world and that we don't have time to wait, which I think is a very good point, because coming from Europe, we have always the problem that we want to make it 100% bulletproof, which takes so long, where I think we have we could see now with Volocopter and Lilium 2, large companies had to stop. Maybe they will find or some said they will find no funding. We'll see where it ends. But don't you think one of the issues is that putting too much safety or try to put 100% safety at the first place will sometimes stop development? Like if we would have tried to put our up-to-date helicopter rules to helicopters at the beginning of last century, we would never have helicopters. What do you think to that?
So I think for me, the idea is, where can we learn and gather data without putting people or structures at risk, right? We know we need to innovate before we need to test, we need to learn before we get to the 10 to the minus ninth. Where can we do that? We got lots of desert here in sunny Arizona, right? There's lots of opportunities for innovation zones and test areas where we can gather lots and lots of data without putting people or buildings at risk. That's where I think lots of other places, notably the UAE, notably China, have allowed some of these OEMs to thrive.
So you would agree that maybe doing some unmanned stuff before we get to the core air taxi business would be the solution also for companies for getting business model to work, because that's a big challenge.
Yeah, and success breeds success, right? The more data we gather, the more improvements to battery technology and mission mapping, I think the better that business case will materialize.
Great. Any more questions for Dave? It's a crowd of engineers, Mayor Gallego, so they're a little shy. Okay, Mike's got a question. All right.
Well, I was actually just going to tell the audience that all of these presentations are intended to be interactive, so encourage everybody to come up to a mic and ask questions throughout the event. We have another 10-minute schedule for Dave here.
Well, I'm happy to give it up to the mayor, and I'm happy to address any questions you have throughout the event as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
We got a question.
First time here, never been to any event. I'm a battery guy, so lithium-ion batteries. So just curious to get your perspective on shortfalls of current technology with batteries and where they need to go to help out the industry.
More energy dense, I think is the phrase.
Not surprising there. And probably power density.
Yeah. So what I would say is we've seen very impressive advancements in battery technology. The closer you get to EIS of these vehicles, you solve this problem, you solve that problem, you bolt something on, you weld something on, they get heavier. So by the end of the mission, they're asking the battery to do a lot more than perhaps they had originally intended. That's not the battery manufacturer's fault, but the mission gets shortened as a result of that. I think everybody who's been at this a while predicted that, right? And so now the goal is, what's the mission we can serve? What can we learn with the vehicles we have, with the batteries we have, while it improves? I don't think anybody's betting on the come that there's going to be a 10x change in battery density in the next 5 years, and that's what everybody's business case is supported on. I think incremental gains would be appreciated, and I think hybrid electric, which you will be a massive contributor to, is probably the near-term opportunity, particularly for DoD.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Sorry, I'm Willie. I didn't introduce
Who left
myself.
the mic with him?
I have one more question for you now, which is, like you mentioned, there are all these challenges. We just heard the battery thing. Do you think, because we have this global challenges with Europe, China, and United States, perhaps not collaborating like it should be if we want to have the fastest success. Do you think any of the problems can be solved in one of the markets itself, or do you think it's a global economy where we have to work together with, let's say, the best battery manufacturer from China, with the best avionics manufacturer from US, and with the best airframe manufacturer from Europe? Or do you think really in one country can do all and the rest will stay behind?
I hope it's the former, right? I certainly believe the best outcomes come when all the best athletes throughout the world get to contribute their part, and we're able to integrate those systems together. For reasons of national security, you are going to see some indigenous vehicles, and they may have some of the best pieces, and they may not have some of the best pieces because they have to be resilient in a time of conflict. But if I had my druthers, it would be that, you know, we are able to reach in to all of those solutions being developed throughout the world and integrate them into one all-star vehicle that represents the best of what the world has to offer. Larry.
Good to see you, Dave. I wonder if you could comment, maybe the mayor can too, on an aspect of community adoption of urban air mobility or advanced air mobility, and what needs to get done from the community like this and from our government officials that would make the entire community ready to adopt vehicles flying at low altitude over large areas like Phoenix.
So I tried to touch on it because I do think it's so vital how we tell that story. Because a story of well-off people don't like sitting in traffic and they want to fly over traffic is not a compelling narrative. And it's also not a complete narrative, right? If we think about the missions that are going to be solved by this technology, they're massive. They're everything from national security to firefighting to first responders. And if we're not telling that story, we capable people who understand this technology aren't telling that story. Nobody is. And so we have to be advocates. We have to be that annoying person sitting next to you on a plane who won't stop talking about how you can fight fires, how you can spray crops, how you can make first responders safer with this technology, and, right? And open up regional economies and underutilized regional airports. Again, more than you asked for, Larry. But if we're not out telling that story, I would suggest that no one's going to tell it on our behalf. And then if you can educate wonderful advocates like the mayor or like Michelle Olson here in the front rows, they become a force multiplier and they go out and they tell that story for you. So do your part, Larry, and you know, evangelize with your local presence. All right, I think I am almost out of time, or I can take one more. Mike's giving me a shrug. That shrug means take one more, Dave.
Yeah, there you go. I thought there was, did somebody stand up over in the front that wanted to ask a question? No. I'll just ask, there was a couple questions that touched on like regulations. I know you guys have a whole 20-minute talk tomorrow on the regulatory readiness level document you guys come out. Can you just touch briefly on that and what the thinking was behind that?
Yeah, the RRL was a tool that Dan here in the room, and I'm not sure if Pulkit has made it yet, two folks on my team, we're really trying to, oh, there's Pulkit. We're really trying to give some sober adult analysis so that you could cut through a lot of what you read in the media about this milestone or this technology step or this certification step, so that you could see what that actually meant. Because, as I mentioned, if you put those notifications on, you get something every week that says, hey, the FAA has approved our path to manufacture, or the FAA has agreed to this paper that we submitted. And it's hard to know when that's meaningful and when that's not, because in a lot of cases, none of these vehicles have been successfully through the whole process. And so the idea there was, how do we give a really thoughtful and sober set of checklist that people can say, is that meaningful progress, and where does that put them relative to their peers? It's not to ding anybody, it's not to advocate for anybody. We think it's useful for investors as much as it is for the public to say, how do I think about this company's maturity versus this company's maturity? But more than anything, it was just so that we're all speaking a common language. All right. With that, I have the distinct honor of welcoming the mayor of Phoenix, Mayor Kate Gallego, who has been a wonderful advocate for us and a very informed and capable friend for this burgeoning industry. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Dave. In addition to being a leader in this room, Dave also serves on the Phoenix Aviation Advisory Board, and so is helping us map out the future generally of aviation, but particularly of vertical flight and unmanned vehicles. We want to be a leader in the city of Phoenix, and we're so grateful that you serve us in that capacity. It has occurred to me he could be the president of this organization at the same time he's the president of the Phoenix Aviation Advisory Board. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. So I'm so pleased to welcome you to America's 5th largest city, a city that has been built alongside and because of the aviation industry. Welcome to your beautiful convention center if you are an Arizonan, and to our wonderful downtown. I have a little bit of an odd background as a mayor. I studied science in undergrad and then got an MBA. You would typically see a lot of mayors who come out of things like public safety, policing, and a lot of lawyers. But I feel like the background I have might be the right one for Phoenix and this moment. We are trying very much to be a tech-forward city. So there is only one place in the world where you can take an autonomous vehicle from the airport to the convention center, and that is Phoenix, Arizona. We are the largest autonomous vehicle zone in the world. A sign that we're really open to innovation. This was a technology that has grown and changed in the greater Phoenix area, but we welcomed it and believed it would make our community better. It was a risk for me as mayor and for our Phoenix Aviation Advisory Board when we said we're going to have autonomous vehicles at the airport. I'm sure all of you are on your best driving behavior at the airport and never get confused about one-way roads, but occasionally it can be a stressful driving environment, but we tested, prepared, and were able to deploy the technology safely. I am probably best known, though, for work around semiconductors. So my first international trip as mayor was to Taiwan to recruit TSMC. They are making a $65 billion investment in Phoenix, Arizona, and the world's most advanced chips. So when Angelo was speaking, the cell phone moment, I was like, oh, chips in phones. I love it when you hear cell phones ring, even when I'm talking, because it's a reminder of that great, incredible innovation industry that powers these small electronics, but also powers the technology we are here today to talk about. We are trying to lead the charge to prepare for a future of advanced air mobility and eVTOL. I had the incredible honor of chairing Secretary Pete Buttigieg's Transforming Transportation Advisory Committee, where we advised the Secretary on the most advanced work in transportation technology. That was a fairly broad, from automation to the use of AI in transportation technology, but it's incredible what's happening in the United States right now, and the Secretary really charged us in making sure we do it safely, but that we lead the way as the American economy. We really focused on that at the city of Phoenix, and we're joined by Sarah Demery from our Phoenix Aviation Department, who will talk about what we are doing to try to be a leader in this space, including mapping out the right infrastructure for advanced air mobility. Where should vertiports be? How do they integrate with our existing airport system and very busy aviation system? Mayor brag moment, but we're the #1 airport in the country, according to the Wall Street Journal, and we want to stay that way. And that means we keep needing to be on the leading edge and try to make sure whatever is the best technology, we bring it to our community while still staying the friendliest airport. So I think Sarah's speaking tomorrow afternoon, and you can get into the real details of what we are thinking and where we think it should be. But we hope to be a leader in this area. We just had an election in November with our 10-year strategy, and it included real investments in this area. The plan passed the vote with 79% approval. If you were following elections, including in Arizona, nothing got 79% approval. So the fact that we have good consensus and a vision in that area was really exciting for me as mayor. We operate several airports, including hubs for training. And so we hope to lead in both the development of the technology, but training the individuals who will deploy it either as pilots on the ground or in the air. Our wonderful weather gives us that opportunity to have pilots training so much of the year, and so we want to take advantage of that, as well as the great companies we have here who have built the global aviation system and are so much the part of the future. Dave didn't really brag, but Honeywell has $10 billion of orders in their AAM business already and employs so many of the top engineers and in the world, right here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we've been proud to have them call Phoenix home. And we want to participate in making sure we have the very best in a business environment and regulatory environment as well. We have some of the biggest players, but also many of the smaller companies that represented here today, and we really appreciate you choosing us as home with Arizona, with our great university system and so much more. We feel like this is the place to be, and strong support for leading in this area on a bipartisan basis across our elected officials at the state, federal, and local level. We elect a lot of pilots in Arizona, which I think is good news for understanding the complex issues. We at the City of Phoenix are trying to invest as much as we can in vertical technology. Long time had a very strong public safety helicopter fleet, but now are investing in unmanned vehicles. We recently used drones when we had a significant fire on South Mountain, which is our biggest park in the city of Phoenix. Phoenix has more acres of parks than any other city in the country, which is wonderful, but making sure they stay safe from fire. We really benefit from technology. In mayor world right now, we are all keeping Los Angeles in our prayers and trying to learn as much as we can from it. And for me, having drones to be able to monitor when we had that large brush fire to make sure it was really out was incredibly helpful. I think early to know exactly what happened in Los Angeles, but it appears one of the fires might have been a fire that they thought they had extinguished, but then reignited. And so just making sure that you get it right and keep our community safe is so important, and aerial vehicles are key to that. Our fire department continues to invest in more landing pads and investment in that area, including training our team. And multiple departments now at City of Phoenix are using drone technology and other aerial technology to keep our city safe. I was thinking about Larry's question about how we talk about what this means for our community, and I think stories like keeping us safe from fires are very important. We have a company here, Pablo Air, which is North American headquarters in Phoenix, based in South Korea, and they are looking at using technology to deliver vital medical supplies, including organs for transplants. I think that's another application where people can understand every second matters when you're talking about delivering a transplant, an organ for transplant, and that traffic congestion can have a huge impact on the outcome of the surgery and whether it's successful, so that if we can move those organs more quickly. We are surgery center in several areas, including lung transplants, and the lungs may come from donors all over the region. So again, getting them to our surgeons as quickly as possible means that the life-saving outcomes are more likely to succeed in another area where vertical flight can be part of that success story. I had the privilege of announcing Amazon's drone delivery in my State of the City speech last year, which is a risk, again, as a mayor. It is not a technology that everyone loves. There's concerns about noise, privacy, and more. And so for companies that are deploying in this area, I would encourage you to talk to people, go out in the community at events, and just give them the chance to ask questions. When Waymo came here, they had a lot of concerns about privacy. Would the vehicles see into people's homes? What type of information would be recorded? And they were at festival after fair, just letting people touch the vehicle and ask questions. And I think that was important for people having a good understanding of what the technology does and doesn't do. And now that it becomes more and more common, it is, I think, becoming increasingly comfortable. Although, I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel putting his aunt in a Waymo without telling her what was happening, I don't know if that was good or bad for the deployment of the technology. But it sure has produced a lot of comedy videos as the technology grows. So I guess just to close, Phoenix really wants to be a leader in this area. We're trying to follow the private sector and make sure we understand what you need from local government. We are generally not the regulator, but we can be a great partner in creating spaces for the industry, the infrastructure needed, and we are so glad that you chose us for this event. We can't wait for the bigger conference. So to Colton, to Angelo, to Dave, thank you for your great partnership. To Michelle and the folks who are building the ecosystem, we at the City of Phoenix are ready to be your partners. Thank you.
All right, at this time, it is my distinguished honor to introduce somebody a little higher up on my own food chain at work. This is Chris Spates. He is our Vertical Lift Division Chief Engineer.
All right, good morning. Angelo, we have got to talk about the speaker sequence here. I cannot go after the mayor. Okay. This is a very tough act to follow. Really appreciate your comments and thank you for your support, Mayor. I'm a relatively new to Arizona. I've been here about 6 months. All of my colleagues have complimented the great work and collaboration that you and the other public officials have really offered to industry here, so thank you. Good morning, everybody. As Colton said, my name is Chris Spates. I'm the Vice President of Engineering and the Chief Engineer at Boeing Vertical Lift. I know there's a number of folks in the audience that have either worked at Boeing in the past or currently work there, so I very much appreciate all that you've contributed in the past, the present, and I look forward to continuing those great efforts in the future. It's really a pleasure to be here today at VFS, and when I really think about all of the immense amount of knowledge and experience and expertise that's in this room, I think I have to humbly admit that I am not the subject matter expert of the autonomy stack, of the details within all of the different technologies, but I certainly do my best to try to understand, learn, and be able to incorporate those things into our products in order to be able to bring solutions to our customers and the missions that they need performed. So, with that being said, I would just like to make one last comment about the great state of Arizona and the city of Phoenix is that, for all the program managers in the room, if you're looking to achieve critical flight test milestones that are under the gun, there's no better place than here with the amount of sun and the amount of great weather that we have for flight testing. I can tell you, being in the Northeast for some amount of time, the amount of days that you have to delay or cancel a flight in order to wait for good weather is a bit annoying. Here, it's a little troubling if you're trying to look for rain or look for clouds. So, great place. Today, I'm actually going to share a few thoughts on the importance of autonomy and automation to help drive safety and mission effectiveness. You're probably going to hear that a lot, and that's going to be sort of my intent. So by the end of this talk, I want you to walk away and say automation and autonomy is going to help improve safety and help drive mission effectiveness of our platforms. That is going to be the key thing. So hopefully you hear that continuously, and if you're thinking, my goodness, how many times is he going to say the word safety or effectiveness, then hopefully I may feel like I did my job here. So as we see the rapid advancements, not only in algorithms, sensors, the compute capabilities out there, the possibilities of how the technology is going to continue to advance and increase our safety and mission effectiveness are really unbounded. I'm excited to be able to see how that continues in the future, and I'm excited for us all to be a part of that. So let me see here where we go. The last thing, I've got a little video that I want to show, but before I do want to make one last comment. Angelo, Mike, and the entire VFS community and team, I really appreciate the opportunity to both be here and also for the immense amount of work that you've done to help put this together. Bringing this amount of expertise and just knowledge together in one place so we can collaborate over a number of days, it really creates a great opportunity for all of us to help advance the things that we all want to. I know that you've put a lot of work into this and really want to acknowledge that and thank you. So without any further ado, what I'd like to do is show a short video. We call it the sizzle reel. But as you watch it, I want you to kind of look at the number of different configurations and aircraft and designs that the Boeing company and all of our predecessor companies, whether it's Hughes Helicopter, Piasecki, and some of the other things that have kind of evolved into the current Boeing company. But look at all of the different kind of innovation and just creativity that has existed over the prior decades that have led us up to this point. So if you, without further ado, could you roll the video, please? All right, we had to wait for those last drums. So, I actually imagine that a number of folks in this room have in some way contributed to many of those aircraft. So hopefully if you did see yourself in some of those efforts, you feel a very great sense of pride in how you've helped advance the state of vertical lift. So thank you for all of those contributions, both in the past and again in the present. So let's see if I can get our slides here. I may want to get a... Yep, next slide, anybody? There we go. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about, I don't have a lot of slides actually, just a couple, but we're going to get a little bit in the technical details. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit is the difference between automation and autonomy. And for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to make a little bit of a distinction. So my distinction is going to be that automation is really technologies and capabilities that aid the human in performing some type of activity, whereas autonomy is really being able to accomplish a task without any involvement of the human. I know that, I may even in fact use some of those words a little interchangeably, but that's the construct that I have in my mind. And I think it's really important because, Dave talked about we need to do things here and now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. And so when I think about that, the things that we have here and now are automation. We absolutely have implemented automation. Many of those aircraft that you saw in the video relied upon the automation in order to just be able to operate effectively and efficiently and safely. However, as many of us look to the future, there is, whether it's from Waymo, whether it's from Wisk, or many of our other unmanned platforms that are doing various missions, cargo and whatnot, there's also that end goal of full autonomous operation. But as you are likely well aware, right, within our current Boeing portfolio, we have our primary enduring fleets of the Apache, which we make here in Mesa, the Chinook, which is made up in Philly. We also partner with Bell on the V-22. So I'm the Little Bird here, the MH-139, all of these manned platforms. So when I think from my role as chief engineer, when I think about, how can I help drive safety and mission effectiveness, I really think about how we can apply automation to these platforms. Because I can assure you today and not even tomorrow, we're not pulling the pilots out of those aircraft. But there are absolutely opportunities to be able to apply automation, move towards that autonomy, drive the safety and mission effectiveness of our platforms we have today, and prepare for those even safer and more effective platforms of the future. So, as we look at the slide, I'm not going to go through each of these, but we picked a few of our platforms that kind of represent some key growth in our capabilities throughout the years at the Boeing company. Now, this is not inclusive of all of the different subsidiaries, right? This doesn't include In Situ, it doesn't include Wisk, and some of the great work that we've done at Aurora Flight Sciences either. But in some ways, many of those groups have collaborated over time and more recently in particular. But this really reflects the sort of some of the automation progression that we've had across the Boeing platforms. So starting from the heliwing on the very left, this is going to be a very basic sort of waypoint navigation. This is not kind of like the higher level autonomy, see and avoid type of operation that we might be familiar with. But it still started to give Boeing a capability and understanding of how to operate in this with these unmanned platforms. I heard Angelo talk about the Little Bird. So he would probably be much more capable of describing all of the things that the Little Bird accomplished. But one of the key things that I thought was really interesting was, as one vignette, one example, the tactical unmanned landing on shipboard on a ship. That's not an easy problem, right? When you look at many of our current platforms today, a fixed location that's always stationary, it doesn't heave, doesn't roll, doesn't move around, it's not a moving target. So to be able to demonstrate those capabilities, again, laid a foundation for the automation and on the road towards autonomy. There's a really fun one here, which I didn't know a lot about. Maybe some of y'all do, maybe some of you don't. But we actually developed an X-wing aircraft that hovered and flew for Disney. And it's sort of interesting. It wasn't autonomous. It wasn't like, it was genuinely, truly remotely piloted with onboard automation to amplify it. But the key thing that was really important and why we included it in this story is that it really helped set the standard for the safe operation around people. When you think about contingency management and risk at Disney, there is no option for accidents, right? You cannot, take an amusement crowd and somebody that's come there for fun and expose them to some type of aviation incident. So the level of system requirements, safety, and contingency management in that was really core, and again, helped shape that foundation for how we can continue to advance automation and autonomy. So, again, Dave, hopefully I'm not sure if I'm going to refer back to it a lot of times, but I love the fact that, this is in the here and now. These are technologies and capabilities that we've added and helped grow our own self. I'm going to show in a few slides a little bit more on the Chinook side, but there's really a system that I'm going to describe a little more in detail called APAS. And so that's really an active parallel actuation system. And the key thing about APAS that I want everybody to take away again, so we got safety, we got mission effectiveness. APAS is a bridge, all right? APAS is the bridge that allows us to explore and advance automation and autonomy in our platforms in a way that's safe and effective. In the here and now. We are currently flying these aircraft with APAS and continuing to expand their capabilities and looking for applications elsewhere. I'm going to show you a little more detail in just a moment. Before I do, I want to, actually, can we do one more slide? Yeah, we're going to need to fix that. So this is just kind of the generic TED Talk sort of picture here, but I do want to talk about, before I jump into APAS being that bridge, I do want to talk about sort of the focus on safety. And I was so glad to hear the story about Waymo, for example, here, because I love it. My family and I, we have a game whenever we see one, we all yell Waymo, and whoever's the last to yell it is the loser. So we're all like, Waymo, 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 right? So it's a really great fun as we've come around. And, I actually wanted to clap when you said, we could take a Waymo from the airport to the convention center here. I love it. I'm thrilled about it. I think it's the future. And in support of this talk, I actually looked up some statistics on it. So it turns out that Waymo in the city of Phoenix, up through the end of last quarter, has driven more than 20 million miles in the city of Phoenix alone. Within those 20 million miles, their injury-related accident rate is around 60% less than actual human driver equivalents. If you include some of their experience in San Francisco, which is arguably a little bit more of a challenging and complex environment, I think the overall ratio there of reduction of incidents is around 88%. So when I look at those types of statistics about how automation, how advanced sensor systems, compute, software stacks, all of that have combined together to create an ability to go from one place to another with increased levels of safety, that's something that we want to be able to replicate within not only aerospace, not only within vertical lift, but within Boeing. So, I really love seeing that reference here. I love the fact that we're progressing and moving forward in that direction. And I think it's very applicable to what we're doing within the VTOL space. Okay, we'll go one more picture. All right, there we go. So I'm going to actually share some not really super technical slides, high level. Anybody that's read some of our papers over the years, AHS and other papers, or been to conferences, you may be familiar with this to some degree. But this is really the active parallel actuation system. As I mentioned, this is a parallel system. It's actually dual redundant. So when we talk about reliability, this is going to put you somewhere in the 10 to the minus 6, not the 10 to the minus 9 or greater that you're really going to want for full-time autonomous uninhabited operation. But what it does give you is, with the, is maybe very apparent to you, the sticks are still in the loop. So you still have stick-to-head operation. So even though you're boosting and augmenting the pilot inputs, the pilot always has direct override control over the APAS system. That creates a great environment for us to be able to apply algorithms, apply automation and autonomy principles in order to help reduce pilot workload, create a safer environment for those tactical missions that can be very challenging, very difficult for the pilot and co-pilots to be able to work through. So with the parallel system, we really not only give ourselves full authority over advanced flight, allowing us to implement advanced flight controls, but what I really think of is the pilot is the tertiary dissimilar processor in this system. So really, we leave the pilot in the system to drive the levels of reliability and really safety so that we can implement that here and now, not tomorrow, not next week. So we've demonstrated this system in the Chinook. There's a number of things that I would love to be able to share in an open forum. I can't quite go into some of those technical details, but at a high level, we're continuing to advance those controls, those capabilities, the workload reductions, and the mission effectiveness. I'm going to actually go to the next slide and give you just a very, very small vignette. This is not earth-shattering, this is not revolutionary, but it does just highlight the sort of things that we can do with an APAS system. So when you look at this, really a lot of you may be pilots, maybe you've flown or you're familiar, right, with basic flight directors and autopilot functions. And in the commercial space, there's a lot of auto land functionality that's there. But within the tactical rotorcraft vertical lift space, there's a lot of nuances and complexities, a lot of risks, right? This is not normal commercial air transport. These are not low-risk missions. In our tactical environment, the things that the pilots and the crews are exposed to are really variable, they're unpredictable, and frankly, they create a level of hazard and risk that is much greater than the average civil application could ever tolerate or absorb. But when the mission is that critical, these are the things you have to do. So in this example, as you come in for an automated approach, APAS can actually fully command the aircraft within the limits of the aircraft's performance capability. As it comes in, if the pilot would like to make an adjustment, if the pilot says, I want to be to the right side of the lane, as it were, the pilot is able to actually influence, provide an input, release the stick, and then allow the aircraft to continue to fly. The real simple way to think about it is with lane centering. The system does not just try to bring you back to the center of the lane. If you move over to one side of the lane, the system, APAS, the logic says, okay, this is where you want to be for some tactical reason. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to hold that because you're the pilot, and that's where I'll keep it. So you could move it over to one side during an approach, let go of the stick. You'll hold that as effectively a new trim position. If for some reason the pilot decides, I don't like what it's doing, this isn't safe, I don't like the behavior, the pilot at any time is able to override and fully command the system. So this is really what I mean, as you can imagine, this is the bridge that allows us to bring autonomy and automation to our platforms here and now. And then as we develop that experience, as we advance the algorithms, as we advance the technology, we can then apply that to fully uninhabited and unmanned aircraft. Let's see. I think what I'll do is probably just kind of skip over to the end based on time. I'm not sure if this is my time. So, to wrap up the discussion, this is actually a picture of me sitting in the Wisk Gen 6, listening and learning to Brian Yutko. So this is my learning and listening face, I wasn't posing, I didn't know there was a picture being taken, and if you don't know, Brian Yutko is our lead at Wisk. And I was just, I had, a great opportunity to visit, to learn and see the aircraft and learn from them. And, I think all of us should take any opportunity that we can, when afforded, to be able to learn and receive from each other as much as possible so that we can all help advance the state of the technology. So I would like to wrap up by saying that the integration of autonomy and automation within Boeing's VTOL platform, it's not just a technological advancement. It's really an imperative for us to be able to help drive the safety and mission effectiveness of our platforms and to meet the needs of the customers that we have in the tactical environment. As we move forward, I'd like to urge everybody in this room to collaborate and innovate together. I look forward to learning from everybody. I hope you all learn likewise from ourselves. And with our collective expertise, I'm looking forward to how we all can lead the way forward for industry. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
And we have some time for questions, if folks have questions. I'm told I have to go up on stage because we are filming. So if there's any, we have about 10 minutes, I say, for questions.
Oh, no.
Do you want to take some questions?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I may have to no comments.
Here comes Dan
No, this
Newman.
is,
All right, here we
this
go.
is not fair. I'm going to ask you the question, sir.
No. It's not a zinger.
Okay.
So I'm asking you to think on your feet. But as we extend automation, and we want it to be trusted as automation,
Yeah.
who are all the in your mind, who are all the stakeholders that we have to convince, and you talked about APAS being a path to doing that.
Yeah.
How will we now start building that trust among all the stakeholders so that we can get it approved and used earliest?
Yeah.
And it's not intended as zinger.
No.
It's just your opinion from your experience.
I'm going to give you an example of when I rent cars. I love to check out the technology, the entertainment, the suite, whatnot, and especially any of the automation associated with whether it's auto braking, lane keeping, et cetera. And it's really interesting to me to see the different applications across the cars. My own personal car, I won't name the brand, but frankly, it kind of does the bounce left and right across until 2 or 3 times, beeps at you and just lets go. When I've rented Hyundais as an example, Hyundais really do a nice job of lane centering. I've seen some pretty good curves that it maintains the capability of. I can kind of supervise it in a supervised autonomy type of mindset for probably 2 or 3 miles without really having to do much. It says keep your hand on the wheel. So I would say, just using that as a reference point, Hyundai has built a little more trust with me about how their system drives. And if something were to happen and I'm like, oh, I can reach down for a moment or something, I've kind of built up that little bit of trust. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to work in the aircraft, right? In aerospace. Aviation, the safety requirements, limitations are a little bit more. But I can tell you from personal experience, just by getting exposed to the different systems, getting to see how they behave, seeing which ones behave like I would want to behave and which ones are just completely off kilter and non-trustworthy. I mean, that's one interesting perspective that kind of, at least in my mind, how I've built some trust there. Now, let me, if I could, kind of extend that within the aviation space. I think if you think of our customers and our users, we have to have environments. We have to have the environment to be able to build that trust. Simulation is a really great place, but until you're flying in the aircraft and getting that hands-on experience, I don't know that you're going to build the level of trust that somebody says, you're going to get the right stakeholder and decision maker says, I want this in my aircraft ASAP. It's a mission imperative, and this thing is exactly what I've been looking for. Let's put it in. But you have to get the technology up to a point, get the stakeholder some sort of exposure and experience. It's not going to be through slides. It's not going to be telling them. It's not going to be through a paper. I think it's going to have to be through demonstrated performance of some level that creates the trust that allows you to kind of move forward. So
Thank you.
That's my best thought.
I would have a question here, which is following up to the trust thing. As we're talking about autonomous, and we also have to talk, when we talk about all this VTOL, about the system, the air-controlled system, which will be needed behind, because even if you have one autonomous flying aircraft, if you have hundreds or thousands, and especially different kinds, we'll need newer systems. Which role do you think AI can play, have to play in it, and do you think you can manage it without it?
Yeah, really interesting question. I think all of us know that the terminology of AI being used to support autonomy is vastly overused. We largely exist in a deterministic environment to drive traceability and certification, right? However, I think that the application of AI, both within the platforms and perhaps in the management of the various platforms in an environment of whatever that may be, is going to have to be in a way that it either recommends or it creates sort of advice for what should be done that can then be taken in a more deterministic way as, I don't want to say a watchdog necessarily, but you need to have some sort of deterministic oversight that the AI can help filter all of the noise, focus on what you think is, what should be the most important, and then allow you to deterministically address whatever that is. I think there's a lot of different strategies for how we can implement it, but that's one that I have in my mind just from kind of basic sort of architecture of watchdogs. You have to be careful of the reliability and the safety of the watchdog system itself, because what if that's wrong? So, you can kind of get stuck in a infinite loop there. But I think that the application of AI in complex environments will help reduce the noise, focus on what we need to, and then we have to have some form of a deterministic, certifiable way to, whether it's air traffic routing, whether it's flight control management, vehicle management, whatever it may be. So that'd be just my deferring to the experts in the room here, that would be my thought. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim Wilson. I'm with
Jim.
the MITRE Corporation. We're a federally funded research and development center for the FAA. So I guess I'm one of Dan's stakeholders that need to be convinced on things. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how do you see autonomy gracefully degrading? Because I'm seeing videos, we're still in the autonomous vehicle stage, and I see videos of like a vehicle that has a fender bender and multiple sensors on the front were damaged, and then all of a sudden the autonomy just makes the vehicle just go off and go crazy until it impacts things. And I'm just thinking, bird strike, multiple sensors impacted. So how do we see an autonomous vehicle safely degrade if something starts to occur?
Yeah, that is such a deep question. I think we could probably do a paper, an entire conference on sort of that type of contingency management of autonomous systems. what I would say is one of the biggest challenges with autonomy is the scenarios that you've not yet encountered and you haven't, adapted the system to, or you haven't even trained it on, right? Because you didn't know that that specific scenario could exist. I might suggest that we have to have a reference of what's the next best alternative. If our litmus test is whether an autonomous system is fault-free and greater than 6 sigma from a reliability standpoint, we're going to fool ourselves from not comparing to what the alternative is. And the data that I thought mattered, for example, is injury accidents of automotive. And that's going to be the sort of thing that helps me make a decision about whether I put myself or my family in those vehicles. Am I lowering my risk by going in them? Even though there's maybe some uncertainty, not all the contingency management sort of scenarios have been sort of thought through, factored in, trained, or programmed. So I think at some point we have to, as an industry, as a community, as a society, kind of decide what is our measurement of success, what is our standard, because it may not be 0 incidents and perfect behavior during all future contingencies. I don't know how to quantify that necessarily, but I know that we need to set the right litmus, the right criteria and the right threshold. So when it gets to the actual technology of how it should properly degrade, I'm going to just say that from a systems approach, from a systems engineering analysis, right, fault trees, really understanding the history of whether it's accidents, incidents, other things that have occurred, we, industry in the aviation, have got to be able to share in a safety environment and be able to learn from each other and continue to, all of us be able to add those experiences to our training and our algorithms so that we can understand when should we shut off, when should we deploy the parachute, when should we ditch, right? All of those sort of things are going to be pretty critical, I think. So sorry if it's not a more specific answer, but yeah.
It's Lyle Chamberlain from Near Earth. I'll follow that one up. It's a little bit of a leading question.
Oh, good. I like those.
To my talk later, so everybody go to that. But we talk about the degradation and the contingency management, and we look at APAS and other things like it, at which point when there's a bridge to that gap between automation and autonomy, there's a lot of decision-making involved. So it's perhaps a different system at that point. It's mission autonomy becomes safety critical.
Yeah.
I'm wondering on your thoughts about how you're addressing that.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. What I'd like to say is APAS is one building block, one component. It's not the only one. So APAS allows us to implement some of these algorithms, some of these capabilities today, right now. And I can tell you, I've flown it in the simulator, not in the aircraft. It was the easiest rotorcraft I've ever flown in a simulator, so intuitive. And it just, the natural PVI, the pilot vehicle interface of how I interacted, to me, it was seamless. However, it's only one part. You have to look at all the vehicle management side. You've got to look at, across the aircraft, there's many more systems than just the core flight controls that have to be incorporated into these degradation, right? Whether it's the sensor system, electrical bus management, hydraulics, like all of these, or if you have hydraulics, and maybe not all aircraft do, obviously, but all of those have to be factored in too. So what I would say is, in our case, this builds a bridge for us to be able to fly hands off, build that trust, maybe even fly uninhabited for critical missions where 10 to the minus 6 is going to be acceptable. But you need to have some of these other building blocks that are added on, whether it's sensors with redundant, maybe you primarily rely on LiDAR, but maybe you fall back to a radar or optics, some other types of things, environments. Maybe you restrict the operating envelope if you have certain failures. All of those kind of have to be factored in until you're going to have a 10 to the minus 9 uninhabited platform that can fly full-time missions, whether it's tactical or civil. To be fair, I actually appreciate the question because APAS is one part of the equation. It's not the only part.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right, appreciate everybody. Look forward to collaborating with everybody over the next few days. Thank you.
Yep. Chris. Thank you. And thank you to all of our welcome. What is this? Thank you to all of our welcome keynotes. So we have a 45-minute break. We'll have coffee finally in the exhibit floor area, and you can talk to the exhibitors while you're there, and we'll be back 45 minutes promptly, so 10:15, and we'll start the government plenaries. Thanks.